Maria Tosco. Hi, Anna Maria.
Hey Jen, how you doing?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Good,
Try
good.
to
I was just
navigate this long winter.
it is long. January was probably one of the longest months ever.
Ever.
It was like the longest 31 days of my life. Yeah, it was a long one. It was a long one. So, what are we talking about today? I know what we're talking about and I love this topic, but why don't
Yeah.
you tell everybody what we'll be discussing?
Right. So given that it's the month of love, we were talking about doing something related to relationships. And there's this one theory that people have learned either in Psych 101 or they for sure they learned it in Developmental Psych 101 that is underestimated. Its usefulness in your current life, in your current relationships is completely underestimated. So it's almost like this is something I want to scream from the rooftops that the theory of attachment style can help you in your current relationships and not just your romantic ones, all of them.
Okay. Okay. I think
Yeah.
everybody can relate to this topic and take something from this. So,
Yes. So,
so how can knowing your attachment style kind of help your relationships?
well, there are four adult attachment styles. Some are more common than others. But what I want to say before we start here is that you can have a mix of a few of them. People will say, well, it depends on the situation and it depends on the person I'm with. So I'm in complete agreement with all of that. I'm not going to stick anybody into one category necessarily. You might move around, but either way, it's so enlightening to know what attachment styles you have. And to be honest, you do kind of sway into one. Like you oftentimes exhibit this attachment style, but it's not to say they don't dabble in the others. So I just wanted to say that before we begin.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So what's the first one we've got?
So let's talk about secure,
Okay.
right? Secure is the healthiest one. It's the one without the drama. So I wanted to start there because it's very basic, it's very healthy, and then we'll get into the dramatic stuff later. So with a secure attachment style, I want to address. I guess I want to say it like this. Um, in order to understand your attachment style, I want everybody to think about what they do in a time of conflict, in an argument, in a confrontation. Okay. And then the idea is how do you feel? Do you feel like you want to run away? Do you feel like you want to be up in their face, kind of relentlessly finding a solution? Or are you comfortable, tolerating a little bit of the discomfort and trying to come up with a solution? So I just want people to ask themselves that question. When it comes to having a secure attachment style, I think everybody knows where I'm going with this. Somebody with a secure attachment style doesn't shy away from those uncomfortable emotions that we have in a conflict with someone. They're not afraid that the person is ultimately going to abandon them, nor are they afraid that the person is going to get too close. They're not going to blame the other person. They're not necessarily going to blame themselves entirely either. There's almost there's a shared responsibility here. Let's talk about your end. Let's talk about mine. And how can we work through it? So so ultimately, when I say these things, you can see that I'm alluding to somebody who is secure here, not running away, not afraid, is able to apologize, and is also able to receive an apology. So you see this like able to balance, and there's uncomfortable emotions in here, and but they're willing to work through it, and they also have a belief that things could very well be okay after this conflict. So you kind of feel the oozing of security in all of those characteristics. So that's what having a secure attachment style is. And I know for me, I do have some of that in a lot of my relationships, right? I have some of the others as well, but it's nice to know that sometimes I feel secure. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that when I think of my particular attachment style, I think that I alter mine depending on who I'm dealing with. Like I have a certain way of dealing with my husband and having certain conflicts with him in a relationship. But then there's certain friends that you have to deal with them in a certain way in conflict because some of them are fleers and some of them do want to get right up in your face, and then some you do have that secure thing where you just know you can approach the topic and discuss it openly and use all those face all those emotions, and there's no threat that that person's going to just shut you down, or, like you feel very comfortable even if you're in a conflict.
Yeah. It sounds like you're telling me that for the most part, it sounds like you have I knew this though. I feel this about Jenn, that you have a secure attachment style for the most part, eh?
I think that I do. I hope that I do. I would like to think I have that, but I think it's also because I have a really good group of friends. If you had asked me this 10 years ago when I was like in my late 20s, early 30s, I had different friendships then. I think by the time, and I think you can identify with this, when you're coming up to like your 40s and even midlife, you kind of know who your go-tos are at that point, and you can securely go into conflict with them without the drama and all of that. But it's kind of different when you're younger.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that. So, yeah, and you're raising a good point. Some people are saying, "Hey, it does depend on who you're with." So now you have your go-tos, you have your people you've built relationships with and trust, and you have every reason to be secure and not worry and not feel like somebody's going to stab you in the back at this point. But early on, or if you're with somebody who unfortunately is not trustworthy, you can find yourself in that kind of insecure place. So
Absolutely.
I think you're right too, that as you get older, you find a way to be more secure with you choose people who are kind of anchored and grounded and that allow you to have this nice secure attachment style.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say too, in the attachment styles that we'll talk about, upbringing or history or past does have to do with what attachment style you have. So people who likely have a secure attachment style have had, a history likely of, even give and take and reciprocity and mutual respect. Unfortunately, it's not always the case for everyone. Not everybody has that, has had that kind of history. So let's talk about the other kinds then.
Okay. So we have avoidant.
Yeah. All right. So what does the individual who has avoidant attachment style, what do they do in conflict? Let's start there. So in conflict, you have those uncomfortable emotions that come up, and essentially the avoidant has has less of an ability to tolerate those uncomfortable emotions. They have an inability or less tolerance to tolerate their own. They have less tolerance to tolerate the other person. So it's this idea of uncomfortable emotions. I don't want to go there. It doesn't lead to good things. So they will often run. And I want to take this opportunity to say people with avoidant attachment style often get a bad reputation. They have a reputation of, oh, she doesn't care. What are they doing? They're running away all the time. They don't care about me. And in truth, that's not always the case, right? And a person who has an avoidant attachment style avoids oftentimes to save the relationship, or what they think will save the relationship is running from all of that discomfort. And oftentimes it's because in the past they have been burned, they have been hurt, and uncomfortable emotions is associated with rupture or end or something bad. So, of course, they're going to want to avoid it at all costs. Right. So, and listen, what comes with that? Sorry, I'm just writing some notes as I'm speaking here because I'm getting some ideas, but ghosting, like, a person who ghosts very well might have an avoidant attachment style. So think about scenarios when you ghost, like, I don't want to talk to that person anymore, or that person's too much for me, or you know what, I don't really like that person, and how am I going to get out of this? So I'm just going to end it, like, done, not communicating, gone, blocked, ghosted completely, avoiding all of the discomfort, right? When, of course, so the homework for this person is essentially like, listen, when you're in a conflict with someone, you are absolutely allowed your space. You are absolutely allowed to say, hey, give me some time. But the thing is with an avoidant is they'll take all the time. They'll take all the time and never circle back. So when I have somebody with an avoidant attachment style in my office, the homework is, please leave. Go ahead. Leave, but you got to come back, and it has to be in a reasonable amount of time. So I guess that it depends on what that is for, the individual circumstance, but 2 weeks is likely too long. 20 minutes likely not long enough. So we're talking about a day or two, come back, circle back, and face the conflict. And I think I know for me. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think I use this with, I don't want to say superficial friendships, but you start to get close to a mom from school, or you get close to a coworker, and then you realize that that person, if you get into a conflict, they're not on the same level as you. So then you just figure, you know what, this is probably easier if I just, kind of phase them out,
Oh man, I'm so glad Jen, that's why I love you so much because you bring up these
Because
amazing
that's why I
points.
think of a mix of all of these, because I would never use avoidant with like my best friends because it would eat me alive. I'm probably the opposite, where we're going to talk about the person that is like on top of the person. Like, I want to resolve this because I
Yeah.
love you and I don't want there to be any kind of, but when you have kids in school, or you meet, parents at hockey, whatever, and you start chit chatting, and then you start to see, then I find I use the avoidant one a little bit, where I'll kind of be
Yeah,
like, I'm going to keep my
but
distance.
you're raising a good point because that's the thing when an individual is not close to you. So I guess when what I was saying before, it really is the case of being in a relationship with an avoidant, be it platonic or romantic. But yeah, when you're not even in a relationship or a friendship, what you just described right there about kind of phasing out or keeping your distance, I don't think is an avoidant attachment style.
Okay.
Because you're not even in the relationship.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So but I think that's an important point because for sure people are thinking about that. So it is important to say here that when we're talking about attachment style, this is when you're in the relationship with someone and conflict
Right.
arises. What do you do? So
Gotcha.
I think that was amazing thing to say. Is there anything else I want to say about the avoidant? No, I mean, the biggest point I like to always say is just because they're avoidant doesn't mean they don't care.
I
They
love
care a
that.
lot. They think avoiding is actually helpful. And I want to say that thing about circling back, that is the avoidance homework. You got to come back at some point. Take your space. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't have your space. Oh my God, take your space and leave. But please, oh, please come back.
Okay.
Yeah. So the anxious ambivalent.
Anxious. Yeah. What's that all about?
Yeah. So it's interesting because sometimes you have an avoidant and an anxious ambivalent in the same relationship. So what happens in conflict? The avoidant runs out the door and the anxious ambivalent chases them. So it's almost like this relentless pursuit. Okay. So you have the avoidant who likely has been burned in the past, wants to avoid uncomfortable emotions, but you have the ambivalent who has experienced, love and hate, has kind of had this like inconsistent caregiving or relationships in which they have experienced warm and cold. And so what happens in that case? There's insecurity, there's uncertainty, to the point where that uncertainty can drive you bonkers. Do you like me? Do you not like me? Do you care about me? Do you not care about me? So with the avoidant, they are afraid of people getting too close. They're not afraid of abandonment. But for the anxious ambivalent, it's please don't leave me, or please let's not let this go without solving it, because that means something bad. So what happens is I'm so anxious. Do you care about me? Do you not? And I'm not sure now. We just had a fight, so I'm just going to go on top of you. I'm just going to be right up in your face. And where are you? Are you coming home? Can we talk about this? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? This kind of relentless pursuit. So unfortunately, I mean, I hate it when the same way that I hate it where avoidants are labeled like they don't care. People who are anxious ambivalent are labeled crazy, right? But they're not crazy. They're exhibiting an insecure attachment style. They don't feel their footing. They don't feel their groundedness. They are insecure. They don't know what to do with any of this. And they kind of pursue like security. Please help me here. Please tell me you love me. Please tell me we're okay. So in a conflict, they just want to solve, resolve. And then, of course, I think you know where I'm going with this. The homework for somebody who has an anxious ambivalent attachment style will be, and I say this lovingly, back off for a little bit. Yeah, I know it sounds like, but in the same way, the avoidant, I say, please take your time. Don't tell anybody you can't leave. I mean, don't let anybody tell you you can't leave. Go ahead and leave, but come back. And to the anxious ambivalent, I say, you need to back off. Okay. And you need to, at that point, there's like therapy involved, or there's emotional regulation involved because there's anxiety. Oh my God, they're mad at me. Or, oh my God, we got into a fight. We have to resolve this now, 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 now. So there's all of that insecurity and all of that anxiety that's happening in the moment that forces them to like be relentless. So, of course, there's emotional regulation that's needed, and they have to back off, right? Because otherwise, it's too much. Otherwise, the other person is going to be overloaded and they won't be able to cope. But you're not backing off for 2 weeks. You back off for a day or two, right? That person takes their space for a day or two. You back off for a day or two, and then regroup and come back in. And
I was definitely guilty of this in my younger years, I think maybe just my own insecurities made me really freak out if somebody was like mad with me, so I would just, constantly. And it's only been, again, like later in life, I realized, like, okay, like you said, I don't have to let it go for weeks where it's playing on my mind, but there is a little leeway there. Give people a little bit of time to
yeah,
mull and whatnot, right?
yeah, and it is like, I mean, I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about times where I'm like, yeah, I've really been both. At times when I've been insecure
Yeah,
and uncertain and really wanting something, I could have been that relentless person. And at
yeah,
times when someone was coming on too strong or whatever, oh, that was the avoidant person.
yeah.
So it's really interesting to consider, why your attachment style is the way it is and what you can do to ameliorate it. And I really do think going back into the past, realizing what you've been through can help you. But not only that, this advice of, if you're an avoidant, leave but come back. If you're an anxious ambivalent, back off, could really be interesting practical homework for the now in your relationships.
I love that. Yeah, because when I was reading the notes leading up to the broadcast and reading the different ones, I'm like, well, I kind of have little bits and pieces of all these styles. I don't know if I'm one specific style. But
Right.
yeah, that's
But you know
interesting.
what?
That's
I got to tell you, over the years, thinking about it, you really do see, my tendency in this situation is really towards this, and my tendency in this situation is really towards this. So it's interesting to put that together and then to work on it. Very cool.
absolutely. Or even things like in your marriage, when you're with somebody that much, you fall into your own little habits, whereas that might not be your, conflict resolution style with everybody else. But for some reason, you get into this like tunnel mode of how you're going to deal with your partner. And you, until you pull back and kind of look at it, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I treat conflict very differently there.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. Reflect,
Yeah,
reflect, reflect. It could really be beneficial.
absolutely. And the last one we're going to talk about is fearful attachment style, right?
Yeah. Not going to spend too much time on this one. Um, And the reason why is because not a large percentage of people experience a fearful attachment style. Um, I'm going to say this as objectively as I can. Fearful attachment style is often paired with a diagnosis of sorts. Um, so it's the idea that somebody wants closeness and intimacy and friendship or romance, definitely wants that, but is so scared and fearful. They're fearful that they will do the wrong thing, and they're fearful that the other person won't be trustworthy, will be judgmental, and will hurt them. So it's like, I don't trust myself. I don't trust you, but I want this so badly, right? So it's like, if you can't trust yourself in moving forward with friendships or relationships, and you can't trust other people moving forward with friendships and relationships, what happens is you don't make any moves and you end up in isolation. So, like, this kind of attachment style is often paired with, severe depression or paired with severe social anxiety. And while I would love to just give kind of a fun homework tip, for an individual experiencing a fearful attachment style, it is more, their treatment would be more clinical or pharmaceutical. Like, this one is a bit more severe and not very common in high
Okay.
functioning adults.
What
Yeah.
is the most common one out of all four? Would you say that it's the secure one or the avoidant one or anxious?
So
Like,
listen, if you look it up, you're reading an article on adult attachment style. you know, the researchers say that secure attachment style is the most common.
Okay.
So they kind of say in the article that I was reading, 60% secure, 20% anxious, ambivalent, 20% avoidant.
Okay.
But I'd like to, read a few more research articles on that because it would be really nice to know. Personally, I think just based on my practice and what I've seen, like we've talked about before, we kind of bounce around a little bit. But in general, like a healthy, high functioning adult who's, you know, stable in their footing and decently healthy psychologically, I do feel can achieve a secure attachment style or has secure attachment style for the most part. But then when our little triggers show up, maybe we're a little anxious, ambivalent, maybe we're a little avoidant. But it's interesting to know our patterns. And some people are mostly avoidant. I mean, I know some people who are mostly avoidant. I know some people who are mostly anxious, ambivalent. Either way, if we're mostly or if we're a little bit, really cool to know and really cool to apply some of those homework assignments because it can really help your relationship. Could you imagine if you're in a relationship with an avoidant and the avoidant learns, okay, fine, I'm allowed to leave, right? Okay, but the deal is I'm coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have the anxious ambivalent realizing, oh crap, right, I am insecure. This stuff happened to me in the past. I don't trust easily and I'm chasing and pursuing and relentless. Okay, I do that. Let me back off. I just feel knowing that can really help some relationships, which is why I'm so passionate about this topic.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's really important to do that self-reflection and kind of take the time to think about where you kind of fall into those things and how you can change. It's how we kind of rewire how we approach conflict in the first place, right? Once we
Yeah.
kind of have a new way of looking at it, for sure.
Yeah. And if anybody listening has any questions or they want to just, give us a scenario and have us analyze it or something, that would be wonderful because I think that's what we'll do next time, right, Jen?
Yeah, I would love to get some reader feedback, viewer feedback, and people can write in the comments. They can even write right on our wall, messages through social media. We'll make sure Anna Maria gets those questions ahead of time and we'll address them in a future broadcast for sure.
Yeah, that would be so cool to do that, especially on attachment style. I would love, love, love.
Definitely. Well, always enlightening. And I always love being your guinea pig because I feel like it's my own personal wellness session, but then we broadcast it. So it's like a win-win for everybody. So thank you so much, Anna Maria. If anybody wants to check out some of Anna Maria's amazing blogs, we have them in our Healthy Life section on the suburban.com, in the Sassy Psychologist section on MList, or they can go to sassypsychologist.com and see Anna Maria's website directly.
Oh my gosh, Jen. Oh, wow. What a rundown. Pro. Thank
Boom,
you.
boom,
That
boom.
was so cool.
Well, we will be back in 2 more weeks for another live with Anna Maria. Until then, questions, comments, keep them coming. We will bring them up on the broadcast. And once again, Anna Maria, thank you so much for all your great, great advice.
Thanks, Jen. Big fan.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.